Hello, everybody, and welcome here today. I am delighted to have with me Steve and Sophia from Property DriveBuy. How are you guys?
Very good, thanks, Simon. And you?
Good.
Very well,
Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Good.
Shouting a growing Poirot tash, which is
That,
prop tech Poirot is where I'm trying to make myself these days. So
that's a hell of an achievement. It's a great looking.
yeah.
It's a great looking thing.
Thank you. Well, it took me 50 years to grow my first one, so I'm taking advantage of it while I can. Guys, we've got a webinar here today introducing your company to our fans and everything else here. And the title of our webinar here, what we're doing is Portal Shakedown. Is web-based searching really relevant in 2024? Before we get into that element, would you mind just giving us an idea where the concept came around and maybe a little bit about yourselves as well in terms of background?
Yeah, the concept came around through, being involved in sort of the property industry on the periphery of it. My main business is one of the leading direct response ad agencies in the country. So I always tend to look at things from a sort of consumer focus and ultimately looking for new ways that people can interact with a variety of different, search abilities, et cetera. And I think that, let's be honest, we've known that there's been a little bit of pushback from agents as to UK property portals. There's been a level of dissatisfaction for quite some time, certainly in terms of the fees that they were paying. And really, I suppose we wanted to marry that against what consumers would look at when actually trying to search for a property. And we came up with this idea of this sort of geo-targeted app-based search facility that would be a novel way for consumers to search for property. I think in terms of the background of the team, we've all had involvement in the property industry and just wanted to find a new way to take things forward and to challenge the portals in a cost-effective way.
And what does an app-based portal involve? Obviously we're all familiar with portals. We're all familiar with apps as well. Where does the kind of hybrid of this coming together? What does that have to offer consumers and indeed agents?
Well, I think going back to the consumer point, it's all about USPs for them. And ultimately, in a nutshell, what this app will allow you to do is when you're walking past or driving past any property in the high street or that fits your search criteria. So say you live in Hemel Hempstead and you want a 2-bedroom flat up to the price of £350,000 with 2 bathrooms and access to a garden. You load that into your search criteria into the app. When you're walking past or driving past that property, it will actually notify you of that. And then you can see inside the property and see whether you like the decor, see whether you like the floor plans of it, et cetera, and then communicate directly with that listing agent. So I think it's where it is dissimilar from the desktop-based portals where people might be searching and putting in their criteria and literally given hundreds of properties to actually search. This one's really relevant to you because you're right outside of it or you've driven just past it. And bearing in mind that, more than 3/4 of all property purchases are done in your local area, you might like Acacia Avenue versus, Osborne Street or whatever. So you walk down that street and you can actually look inside of those properties without being accompanied by an agent. I think that's very different to the web-based portals.
And that's a very different experience. It'll be one that people are really familiar with, won't they? In terms of you've walked around those areas that you like to yourselves and you want that information there and then. And am I right in thinking that's what you're able to do with this?
Yeah, I think everybody's got their favourite roads, haven't they? I'm sure everybody would love to live on Bishop's Avenue in London, and you'd probably see some interesting sights, wouldn't you, if you went for the internal shots on that? I think, but people do know that what I would imagine is the husband and wife are walking through the local area. I've had it with my wife before. You're just strolling down the street and that comment comes out, I wonder what that looks like on the inside.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And also you've had those instances whereby I know I have, when I'm walking down streets, I often miss the old twitchell, and there's often property at the end of that road that I've missed that I'd had no idea or visibility was there in the first place. And that's the beauty of this. You can keep going with your journey, and it says, actually, if you go 30 seconds down that road there's something that actually perfectly matches your criteria.
Brilliant.
It's a little bit off the road and it's a little bit shielded, but it's there for you. So it captures those interest properties as well.
That's really interesting.
And I think there's also the bigger picture about sort of brownfield or greenfield developer sites, which actually haven't got anything built on them at this moment in time anyway, right now. But as long as they're geo-targeted and they're listed, the developer lists with the property drive-by, it's got the ability to show you what will appear on that site, and with a price tag and floor plans, etc., and any CGIs. And I think that'll be really, really appealing to developers to actually have listings on there as well.
That makes sense, yeah. And so you mentioned there the main portals. Obviously, most people will obviously most agents will be on Rightmove. What, apart from that kind of is there any other angles that you're different from those guys, or does that feel like the main one you're going to differentiate yourself?
Well, I think you're being served property at the most relevant time of you walking around looking for it in your locality. So, I mean, let's be honest, if you went on Rightmove or Zoopla and you put that search criteria into your local town, you might be served with 100 or 200 properties that roughly fit that criteria. And I think it can overload people's minds when you're actually walking past that property and you've seen the search board, but you can't. Later on, you can't necessarily remember the agent's name or details and all the rest of it. Whereas this, right at that moment of that your interest is being piqued, you can actually see those internal details and then communicate either via email or SMS or call the agent immediately through whilst within the confines of the app.
Whilst you're in the moment, I think that's the critical point, isn't it? Everyone's in that kind of, so busy and so many things we had meant to do that were really important to us. As soon as they get, a few minutes out of date, you've lost all chance of acting on them, haven't you? Really?
Well, I think if there's anything that's very true about today's society, is it's how immediate we all are. In a lot of the direct response advertising that we've done over the years for big brands like the Claims guys, who are the biggest PPI company, you might text, "Oh, I'm interested in PPI," text PPI to a number. Yeah. And then if we didn't contact them back straight away within 5 or 10 minutes, believe it or not, you'd lose a third of those inquiries. Because people have moved on to the next thing in their lives. And it's that immediacy and contact with agents, at the touch of a button, that I think is going to provide them with red hot leads that perhaps the portals aren't doing so.
Okay.
I think that's a good point as well, because not only does an app-based portal really strip back all the heavy technological framework that the browser portals have, but you've also got that ability to say, okay, we're on an app level now, and that the technologies, sorry, is that when buyers are looking for property in the evenings, especially, and we're seeing this all the time, this narrative of going home at the end of the day and searching for property behind a browser. Now, browser-based searching has revolutionized the industry from the beginning, but it's getting to that point now where it's creating that sweep of buyers who are a little bit more fair weather, because you're engaging in that evening browsing. You're maybe looking at 100, 200 properties. You're inquiring about a handful to 20 of them at a time. So when agents receive those leads, they've lost that touch that leaves them a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more immediate. They're more in that happy browsing state where we're saying, okay, we're taking that away. We're moving those buyers back onto the street and capturing that window of interest, which is red hot straight outside of property. And it really, compared to the portals, it's not that, as Steve was saying, where you've got the board outside, you've just traveled past a property and you're like, actually, who is the listing agent? What street am I on? And you've got that frustration of trying to scramble through the portals and try and find that listing. where we're saying, okay, we'll capture that there. Yeah, it is. And it creates a lot of frustration for the buyers. And by the time you've navigated through and found that property, you're either a little bit too frustrated, or you're on to the next property and the next interest point, or you're further along on your drive. So it's really transforming that experience at browser level and taking it to a new age, just to give that comfort and a stronger lead, if that makes sense.
It does, totally. And that geolocation element of it as well, I think it will give more stickiness and more relevance. If you remember, oh, that was the property we were inquiring around on Acacia Avenue. That's, you know, rather than just something you've seen amongst hundreds, obviously, on the web, that's going to, I think that will stand out much more. But you still need to make sure you, obviously, that immediacy is really, really important, isn't it?
I think we did, Sophia, I think you should also touch upon the sort of route mapping element of it, where, you know, you can, well, I'll let you explain it. You're better at explaining this than me.
Well, I think one of the, so if we take this back a little bit, when agencies sign up with the portals, they're quite locked into the framework of the portals and how they function. And it sometimes detracts from the agency's website and their own marketing presence in the real estate space. But also it gives that little bit of difficulty to organize yourselves and to organize yourself with the buyer to arrange property viewings, where we're saying, okay, well, we've got your properties on board, we've got them within the app. We then give this experience for agents where they can log into our browser panel and say, okay, these are all my properties that are visible in the app. Here's the people that I've contacted within the app. Let's choose buyer A. I know they're interested in the following properties, and I know the following properties match that criteria. So we have the ability for agents to tag those matching properties and propose a viewing route from those properties that's compiled through the app and then sent to the buyers within the app chat. So the agents, the time that the agents are spending navigating between different pages or different systems is significantly reduced, because we're giving them the ability to say, okay, look, here's my property portfolio in front of me. Here's the matching properties. Here's the contact I've been given in the app. Let's send them the proposed route. And that's quite nice as well, because it gives that early communication for the buyer to say, okay, I love this route, but maybe remove this property or maybe remove that property. And then you've got a customized route before you even travel it together. And it also, again, with the, on the buyer side, the buyer can go, oh, actually, I can follow that route early on and maybe get a feel for the properties, so I can translate to the agent exactly what I want out of that route. So it's really getting the buyer to a state where it's further down in the funnel in the sales pipeline, so it's a more quality lead for the agents, and that's hugely important. I mean, many of the frustrations that when we were working abroad with the agents is that getting that lead that's delivered to us at high enough quality for us to work, because we lose so much time in trying to qualify or pre-qualify the lead. And so, yeah,
well, it stops wasting time, doesn't it, for the actual agents to, and I think there's an element of consumers also not necessarily wanting to be going around 5 or 6 properties in the same day with the estate agent. You know, realistically, you want to pre-vet things, don't you, and actually be given that list and sort of, oh, how exciting, we're going to go and see 5 houses within the space of a few roads, and actually see whether we like the vibe, see whether we like the garden of them, and then obviously be able to see the internal shots, because people can be particularly picky about the decor. So, you know, you can see how it's beneficial to both agents and property buyers alike.
And that sort of innovation, one of the things we were talking about, and I think you were talking and saying, look, real estate obviously considered to be the largest asset class globally, yet it feels like it's one of the last to introduce some of the really innovative tech solutions out there. You see that, whether that's AI, automation, loads of different areas where that's held to be the case. This feels like actually it's getting ahead of the curve on that.
Yeah, and I think there's plenty more to come as well, Simon. I think there's many more applications that we're actually exploring as bolt-ons to this as well. So, but you know, we just want to get agents engaged with it now. It's a free sign up, and ultimately, our mindset is that, you know, we're not thinking anybody's going to suddenly cancel their Zoopla or Rightmove or On the Market membership. So, but we're going to work hand in hand with them. And as a group, we've made the decision that we'll only really look to be charging agents once we're actually delivering them quality leads after our consumer launch. So this is not one where we've got our hands out, money grabbing and asking for thousands of pounds a month.
No,
realistically, the price point is going to be very, very affordable as a bolt onto their existing tech stack, and along with their portal memberships. I mean, obviously, our aim is at some stage for us to be the go-to choice.
Yeah.
Because I think consumers will ship that. It's arrogant to assume that the businesses always drive the consumer. The consumers will drive the way that business needs to go. And I think that this is a genuinely novel and unique way for people to actually change the way they search for property. So, but this will develop as time goes on. There's no doubt about it.
And there's no doubt there, that point you were making, look, some of the very best businesses, obviously the biggest one of all, Rightmove, it's captured the imagination and from the consumer themselves. And as long as you can, that if you can grab that interest, get that niche in the early days from people seeing something new in property drive-by, again, you're going to be in a good place then to persuade the agents. But realistically, why would you as an agent not get involved with this if there's not going to be that, that charging mechanism until, as you said, it's really delivering the leads, which is what they're all after.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why any agent in the UK wouldn't sign up to this, to be honest. I mean, as I said, free of charge until we start delivering leads, and then the price point just being £60 a month to the average sort of 3 negotiator agency branch. It's hardly breaking the bank. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the price of a Costa coffee every day.
Yeah, I suppose the only thing is that they would say, well, it's how many different things we've got on there. So that comes back to how easy is it to onboard with yourselves? So talk us through, that process. How easy is it to get the app set up with yourselves? Is it weeks, months to get set up? What's the kind of onboarding look like?
That's one for you, Sophia, I think.
I mean, this is part of the beauty again of an app-based portal, is the fact that all we need from the agencies themselves is the information about themselves, 3 of their core negotiators. And when I say that, I mean 3 negotiators that they expect to communicate with the leads within app, and then just your property feed. And we do all the onboarding ourselves. I mean, we will caretake and handhold through the whole process. We'll absorb the information and come back to you within a week, 2 weeks, with a full account set up and a demo of what your properties look like. So the agents also get that comfort at the end of the process, saying, right, here's your properties on app. Do they look how you expect? And then we can go live with them straight away. It's a very, very quick turnaround process. The only heavy lifting on our part is feed absorption, and that's a relatively quick process in itself. So it's very comforting for agents to have a piece of prop tech that's been introduced to the market that doesn't have that real uphill learning curve with it. That's just literally plug and play. Give us the information, we'll convert it, and we'll get back to you straight away. So it's a nice approach.
There's so few, Sophia, isn't there, of solutions that do work out of the box per se. I know it's very frustrating from when we talk to our agency clients, is that they saw this wonderful demonstration that was, alluding to all of these benefits from these different prop tech suppliers. And then it feels like, it feels like pulling teeth to get to that stage. Can be very many months and everything else, configuring it, getting it out there. But this one largely is, once you get the idea and everything else, and this is for the consumers really then to pick up, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely,
exactly that.
And once we've got the agents on board, I mean, there's a pretty significant consumer advertising campaign planned across TV, radio, press, and digital, obviously. So,
and that's your background, isn't it, Steve? So that's the.
It is, yeah. So, I've had my own advertising agency, which has been top 50 for the last 25 years. And previously worked at 3 national newspapers, in TV and at Capital Radio. So, number one, we're going to get the best rates, but we also operate quite a few partnerships with big newspaper groups and radio. So we're going to take advantage of either co-funded or very, very cheap advertising campaigns. And but to be fair, I think this will actually become quite viral anyway, Simon. I think you can imagine that, one couple has been out searching for properties, and they can do it just by walking down the local street and actually see the internal details of it. It's a little bit like, you know, I dread to say it, but property porn. You know, you've got the interest of actually seeing what's on the other side, etc., etc. So I think it will be something which people will talk to their friends about. And as I said, from our perspective, really, we just want agents to register, pre-sign up, and we won't have the charging structure in place until the consumer campaign actually kicks off. So
and agents being quite suspicious sometimes, they
yeah.
I guess if they were looking at this, okay, this sounds too good to be true, what would you say to the ones that would say, well, look, there's got to be some sort of catch, you know, is there going to be a nasty surprise down the line on this? How can you put their minds at rest that, you know, what they're getting on board with at the beginning isn't going to be wildly different at the end?
What, you mean we're not going to be changing our prices like the DriveBuy?
Just, you know, sort of get him in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, realistically, I think if £60 stayed at £60 and people were getting regular red hot leads on it, I think they would be open minded to potentially some form of ratchet. But it's certainly not going to be. It's certainly not going to be along the lines of, you know, right moves, increases in the market. I think the price point at £60 for a three negotiator branch is really, really fair in terms of 20 quid per agent per month. We're even open-minded potentially in the future to even look at this as a cost per lead model or cost per sale model. There's plenty of opportunity for expanding this into different pricing models, but the key point of this is it's got to be fair. And if we can bring on the best part of 20,000 agents across the UK, let's be honest, it will be a profitable business, and one which I think we would like the agents to feel on board and feel valued, and not feel like they've had the mickey taken out of them.
And that's a very common and real concern at the moment, isn't it? It's that you only have to look at the amount of groups, obviously, of agents that there are there. There's famously a very public boycott, Rightmove one that's there, that feel like it's too much for them and everything else. And whether that's getting the engagement from a group like that from the agency point of view, it only takes a few viral groups like the likes of Mumsnet or something like that who suddenly start getting people loving this kind of functionality and ultimately that's what you'll be judged on, won't it, guys? It'll be those leads, and if you get the leads, actually everything else falls into place.
Well, 100%. This is it as well. This is it. We can keep the cost down because of the infrastructure difference. So that's a good comfort to the agents that although we may be, as we have in the pipeline, additions to come on later on, they're not going to come with the big pricing hikes. I mean, poor agents are seeing now that the subscription costs they're paying are the difference between, do I hire another negotiator or do I pay my subscriptions at the end of the month? And it's that painful. The reality is it's becoming that painful. So I think agents need to be comforted by something that's going to be there for them, something that's going to be marketed well by the company providing it. And that also it's going to generate interest in the buyer pool, and the buyers will naturally want to take this up because it solves one of the key problems for them. And that is, how can I embed property searching into my day-to-day activities? You look at the mothers traveling to and from schools, you look at the workers who have got the long commutes who are going, I would just love to shave off 10 minutes off this journey. Well, you can say to them, okay, put your phone on the dashboard, let it passively pick up property as you're engaging in those drives day to day. And then at the end of that journey, we can say to the app as well, which is one of the nice points. It says, okay, you've traveled this journey today. Do you want to hit a notifier against your property filters that says, okay, on the same journey, if more properties come onto the market next week, notify me. So all the notifications, everything is more catered to the buyer themselves. So it's going to pick up the interest because it's more of a hyper-personalized experience for the buyers, and then just softly giving them across to the agents. So we've got to find the balance here, and I think we've nicely struck the balance with the tech that's there. So I don't think £60 is going to hurt anyone.
No, and I think that, you know, the actual pricing on it compared to the time savings in the average agent's day, particularly with, you know, being able to put a route map out for potential buyers to have a little look at, you know, is invaluable, really. So, but hopefully there's enough USPs to actually pique the agent's interest. I've got no doubt there will be. And as I said, it's something which we're actually going to do in a way which it will be, which shouldn't worry any agents from signing up right now or pre-registering at this moment.
That's good. And that hyper personalization point, I think, is really key, isn't it? You know, how many people, if you look on reasons for moving, the commute is, you know, quite often one of the top ones there. You know, the need to be near family members or other things. Those real world, everyday kind of concerns and bugbears of people can be solved almost overnight with this kind of tech. That's what jumps out at me from it. From the just by the way, but from the buyer's point of view, is all they need to do is just download an app, what, from the App Store or whatever the normal methods are in terms of Android and everything else?
Yeah, so it's available to buyers, or it will be very shortly, on the App Store and on Google Play. They just download it, they open it straight away. They get to the point where they find a property and then they're asked to input and complete their profile, so to speak. So give their names, their contact details, which are verified. And then there's no price point for them. So it's easy browsing for them after that. They've got all this functionality to their hand. And then the ability to also immediately connect with agents. We're not handling the leads ourselves at any point. We're not even branding the leads our own. They're just handed straight to the agent within the app. I mean, the agents are connected to the back of the chat function in the app. So as soon as a buyer picks up the app and starts conversation, they're there with the agent. So it's easy. It's easy for both sides.
Okay, that's great. And do you think these tech frustrations are starting to percolate through to the consumers? Again, one of the stats you provided us with was that search visits to the market leading portals fell by as much as 18% in 2023. But UK home buyers are still seen as some of the most aspirational in Europe there. Is that a sign that they do want more?
I think it's definitely an indicator, strong indicator. I mean, we've seen things that have happened with the market last year that are contributing factors. But with such a hefty drop, I mean, 18% is a massive drop. So I think the appetite is there. Either the schedules are too busy. There needs to be something that gives a piece of tech to say, okay, let's re-garner the interest, let's re-stimulate the interest and get them searching again. Because I think
hopefully 2024 is going to be a better year for the property industry than 2023, however, as well. I think you know, that's a good time for us to be launching as well, Simon.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I'll be honest, because all you ever hear is this never ending, we've increased our views and everything else and traffic to the site, don't you? So actually that really surprised me there, hearing that statistic there. So that's, you know, that's useful to know, isn't it, when you're weighing all this stuff? And of course, everything is cyclical and based around the property market itself per se, but it's going to be a good position for you guys to benefit from, obviously, when that, if and when that bounces back, and look, those people are looking for something extra.
Yeah, it's looking encouraging though, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, and that campaign again, because ultimately, as we said, the leads will dry it. What does that look like in terms of what's the aim of the campaign when you're going to go to attracting those buyers? How are you going to be supporting the agents other than the agents pushing it out to their own buyer clients as well?
Sorry, Simon, I'm not sure I understood that one.
Yeah, so how are you going to attract the buyers, basically? You know what, obviously the agents are going to, if they sign up for this, they're going to be telling their own buyers that they should be here. How are you ultimately going to get build the awareness with those buyers?
Well, as I said before, through TV, radio, press, and digital media campaign. So you know, we'll be on things like Sky News, a lot of the property programming on Sky. We'll have ads in national press, and obviously the digital.
That, Steve, or is that set in stone when that's going to be, or is that just when you're building up enough head of steam, enough traction with the agents?
I think obviously you've got to have sufficient properties actually listed within the app to actually engender enough interest. That's obviously a reason why we want that. That's the reason why we want all agents to really sign up for a free of charge period. And ultimately, you know, it's like when you set up a dating site, you've got to have enough people in the local area for people to have enough choice to want to actually go out with somebody ultimately. So
I'm sure I wouldn't know about that
yeah.
side of things.
Well, look, I've launched one over the years, so I think that critical mass is vital. So, and it's really that we need proper national coverage. So we're trying to enthuse agents across the country to come on board. And once we've got a critical mass sufficient enough, we'll push go on the advertising campaign across both offline and online channels, and it will be significant. So it will engender interest.
Perfect. Well, let me just summarize where I think what I understand from we're there. We're going to obviously catch up with you over the coming weeks and months to keep jumping into more aspects of it. It's going to be very, very interesting there. But from what I've heard so far, you know, the DriveBuy app essentially is going to provide you with buyers who are going to be better informed at the point of obviously inquiry, meaning a higher chance of conversion. You know, I hate that phrase, but you're ostensibly getting rid of a large portion of the tire kickers, which takes so much of the time. The DriveBuy technology again is going to allow you to pre-plan viewing trips with buyers together before you even go. So that nice aspect about, you know, again, being able to really do this properly. And then it can work for any agent. Doesn't matter. This is one thing. A lot of technology tends to fit with either traditional, hybrid, whatever else. This works across the board, doesn't it? Ostensibly, as long as you're interested in the property game.
Yeah,
exactly.
That was one of the key aims, to provide a piece of technology that didn't just affect the traditional agencies, but could really cater to the hybrid agents and the self-employed agents. They need some care too. They've grown massively since COVID, and somebody needs to support them too.
It's a massive part of the market as well, isn't it? You only have to look at the market share stats. We use the likes of 28 to look at that, and when we were going through looking just at the end of last year, that sizable hybrid market is growing really strongly.
Yeah,
enormously.
And I think there's the other point to touch on with this as well, particularly when you're talking about hybrid or, you know, independent agents or whatever, is that you know, if you look at the US model, I mean, believe it or not, there's the best part 3 million real estate agents in the States, and not all of those, you know, if you put that sort of model into the UK, or the proportion of the population as being estate agents in the UK, none of those could probably afford the Rightmove or Zoopla subscriptions, could they? But they could have this because they operate under an MLS model, and they might only have 2 or 3 properties each. But they could certainly afford to pay £60 a month to actually be listed on the property DriveBuy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So, I mean, basically, the question would go out to people: why would they not do this? Out to the agents at least. In terms of getting inquiries, guys, obviously go to the property DriveBuy landing page on kerfuffle.com as normal. Have a look at the further information there. There's an inquire button. If they want to reach out to you guys direct, where can they find you?
Sophia?
They can find us on our website, or we can there's email links on our Kerfuffle page, and they can get to us directly there. I mean, the primary email link goes straight to me, so they'll be straight in my inbox.
And if you don't respond to those emails, there's only one person to judge then, isn't there?
Luckily there's a team of us responsible for monitoring the inbox, so it will get seen.
Well, I think what I'm most interested about, guys, being honest, is we've jumped on a couple of calls now, and there sometimes you talk about, you know, these people who are setting up a new business and anything else, and it feels like it's almost like, you know, it's done in someone's bedroom and everything else. The quality and standard of your back team is absolutely, you know, is really, really impressive. In that you have been looking at this very strategically. You've looked at what's working, what's not working out there in the marketplace, and come up with a solution based on actually what the market needs, rather than sometimes what is just in somebody's head. And I think that's one of the things that means this is definitely one of those ones to watch for 2024.
That's great. Thanks for that, Simon.
It's absolutely true. Good. All right, guys, any closing comments, or shall we catch up on the next one and we'll go through in a bit more detail the property DriveBuy app?
No, I think we've waffled on for long enough.
That's always going to be. It's always going to be the case with me. I bounce around.
No, I was actually talking about me, Simon.
Okay, good. See, I always make it about me, even when it's a negative. But anyway, okay, Steve, Sophia, thank you so much for letting us know about that today. We'll obviously watch with interest and catch up with you soon.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon.
Cheers, guys.
Take care.